boy K-Blao Hood X. Want to break down the bastard language lick real quick. Yeah, bastard language lick was the first lick. You know what I'm saying? It was just the first lick before niggas even knew what the lick was. You know what I'm saying? We had to break down the fact that the English language don't hold enough vocabulary and enough energy to properly translate the shit that I'm even sitting there talking about. You know, English language is a bastard language with some shit that was made up. It's not the original language. That a lot of these concepts, you know, then from Latin, you're talking even certain Arabic language, Hebrew, Aramaic. A lot of English words don't even hold the right connotation. Like it don't even get translated right. You know what I'm saying? So English language is like a business language. You know what I'm saying? It ain't no soul in this language. You listen to Spanish music, even Arab music, certain even French music. They have more soul. It's more language of love. English is a hard, sloppy language. You don't realize it because you speak it and you trust the words that's coming out of you as this is real syntax. You know what I'm saying? But like, if you're talking to an Arab, you know, an Arab hear your voice who don't speak no English. Not even an Arab. You talking to anybody who don't speak English. You know what I'm saying? Who don't know no English. You know what I'm saying? They hear your voice and then they hear like somebody from Britain or like England. And to them, you sound exactly the same. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like you see a black man speaking English. You know what I'm saying? Some people be like a homosexual. Like, especially like you got the high England accent. So like people in England probably don't even think they have an accent. They hear like American English and think we have like a real hard accent. But like somebody who don't speak no English, they can't tell the difference. So just like when I hear somebody speaking Spanish, like I don't necessarily like I know a couple Spanish words, but for the most part I don't know Spanish. So like somebody speaking, you know, Mexican Spanish versus like Puerto Rican Spanish or like Spain from Spanish from Spain, I'm not gonna really know the difference between the accent. You know what I'm saying? So like it's the same thing to somebody who don't speak English. You look and sound just like the motherfuckers over in England. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like you can't trust the language that's coming up out of you. You know what I'm saying? So like in Hood X Lit, we speak in symbols. This page, a lot of things I break down is symbols. You gotta have a symbolic mind. The mind is naturally holographic. So, it's kind of like Taurus mind. And they're like, putting labels. Like the first job that God gave Adam, he told him to put labels on everything. So, the bastard language lit stemmed from that thought. And then like you can't trust the words, you can't trust the syntax, you can't trust the letters. Just the original letters was numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you don't know what those numbers mean, you don't know how to you know, properly translate those from the original syntax like Netunita, stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Then you trust this language. This is some shit that was invented, by man. You know what I'm saying? The original numbers was not invented by man. You know what I'm saying? So the actual meaning of the original number, same thing when you're doing computer code. You know what I'm saying? The numbers have much higher, different, they have a frequency to the numbers. You know what I'm saying? When you're doing, certain codes, not even just computer codes, but also even in like certain algebra or like physics, calculus, certain, equations and stuff they come up with, even irrational numbers. You know what I'm saying? When you're doing math, they got like A plus B equals B plus A, that type shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, bastard language look at, situations in the hood like this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't necessarily trust the language. We look at it from a metaphysical level and use different symbols to translate it for what it is, more so than what the words is telling you what it is. You know what I'm saying? Even like you look at, even back in Egypt and stuff, they used to use hieroglyphs, stuff like this, because the pictures used to have more of a meaning than the actual letters. You know what I'm saying? So like, even though you hear me speaking the English language, I'm actually speaking to you in symbols. Like, it's a bunch of, believe it or not, it's a bunch of symbols moving through my holographic subconscious mind, and all I'm doing is translating these symbols. You know what I'm saying? So, even when you go back to ancient Babylon, ancient Sumeria, you know what I'm saying, when they start talking about astrology, and zodiac, the alignment of the stars, following the stars, they started assigning human traits to stars and planets and stuff like this. Like this were concepts like Zeus and even Greek gods, all the way to like even African gods. Like, you know what I'm saying? They've always assigned personality traits to the stars and to the planets. You know what I'm saying? How you interpret it, that's a different story. But ultimately, say they still personified these different types of energies and even etheric energy. That's what science is. Science is that's what purpose of science is, to put words on things that you can't see, whether it's even on your insides, from your stomach, your intestines, lungs, stuff like this. Like that's not what these things necessarily are. So I'm saying, but science give you a word to refer to it. You know what I'm saying? Same things in outer space. You can't see none of this shit. You know what I'm saying? But the purpose of science is to give names to these things so your mind can have a reference point for them. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, for Hood X, we look at it from the bastard language lit, we don't even trust them words. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because the words put you in a state that you start to trust them words more so than what it really is. And like when you know, push past the words and look at it more symbolically and from a holographic mind, you not only can you give a better interpretation on things, you have a better understanding of why things work the way they work because you see the equation and you see, as we call it, super why more so than just the why things happen. Like most people be focused on the what, they don't even focus on the why. So I'm saying, so like when you actually start speaking and thinking in symbols, you will see the super wide things. You know why the person is saying what they're saying and why they're doing the things that they're doing. And you know what I'm saying, even when you start studying scripture and stuff like this, you get into prophecy. You know what I'm saying, you be able to read prophecy. Like when people go through shit that they go through in life, from big breakups or like somebody be molested as a child, or somebody be, you know, somebody close to them being got killed, or like they been, you know, bullied as a child, stuff like this. Like what? Hold on, give me 1 second. A lot of stuff like this is you know, be prophecy. You know what I'm saying? But if you don't know how to read the prophecy, you know what I'm saying, you might see his equation. If you don't know how to read equations, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna be looking at it as some shit that just so happened. You know what I'm saying? You like, man, like in mind, you might even see the patterns. All this, you know, multiple people going through this, and but like you might not know how to interpret it. You know what I'm saying? Because you trust in the language. You know what I'm saying? More so than what it actually is. You know what I'm saying? So the first lit we came up with was the bastard language lit, and this is literally like one of the first things you got to understand when you come across my page is that, like, you know, I speak in symbols and I speak in like hieroglyphs, and like, you know, that's more appropriate for the holograph, your original holographic mind. You know what I'm saying? Before you start trusting language and syntax, even a lot of musicians and stuff like this, you know, use music frequencies that can, you know, control certain music that hit certain tones to give you a feeling more so than the actual word actually can. You know what I'm saying? And like for example, even like a kid can watch a Disney movie, and the kid may not even be able to speak English. Maybe a kid can't even speak yet. Maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 years old, but they can show, you know, like a character wearing dark clothes, real deep frequency music behind them, and the kid used to know this is an evil person or a villain, and then, you know, they play, you know, bright colors and stuff like this with real, you know, high toned pitch songs in the background. That's more so for the hero. So I'm saying, so like even a child can be able to identify, and, you know, even though the child can't even speak language, he can still identify through the frequencies and these tones, you know, the energies behind what this character is portraying. You feel what I'm saying? So this is why, you know, you kind of want to go back to that, your original mind. You're saying, well, you better pick up on something, you're saying the vibe or something, without necessarily trusting the language for explaining to you what it is. Like, you feel what I'm saying? So yeah, without necessarily, you know, disregarding language, because language, you know, obviously you can speak English, you obviously can, you know what I'm saying, but at the same time you still want to, you know, work through it more so than dependent on it for what it is. So I hope that makes sense. So let me get out of here. You know what I'm saying? I got all this shit I got to do, but before I get out of here, I'm gonna tell you, D.